We want to turn now to a series of stories that we are doing this week on how U.S. food regulations have left American consumers exposed to chemicals and additives that have been banned in other countries.
Walk into any Tim Hortons in Canada, and part of that display case is illegal to sell in Europe. Not restricted over there, flat out banned, because European regulators put safety before sales, and the Canadians wave the same recipes through. Today, we're going down the Tim's menu to find every item Europe refuses to touch, and the worst of them is something their oldest customers order every single day. Let's start with the happiest thing in the building, the vanilla dip donut. Soft ring, white icing, rainbow sprinkles, the donut every grandkid points at through the glass. It photographs like childhood itself. Stand at that counter on a Saturday morning and count how many small hands pick it first. Now here's what none of those parents know. In Europe, the red on that donut is basically outlawed, and the reason might change what you order tomorrow morning. Those sprinkles get their color from red dye number 3, a synthetic called erythrocene, and the European Union allows it in exactly one food: cocktail cherries. Not donuts, not candy, not a single thing a child would ever reach for. And it gets worse. In January 2025, the United States banned Red 3 from food entirely after studies showed it caused cancer in lab rats. American law is blunt about that. If it causes cancer in animals, it's out. So Europe fenced this dye off decades ago. America finally pulled the plug last year. And Canada? Canada put it on a sprinkled donut and aimed it at children. 3 countries looked at the same dye. 2 said absolutely not. We said, make it festive. But if that's what they're doing with the decorations, wait until you find out what's hiding in the dough itself. Because the sprinkles, you can scrape off. The next one, you can't. Order the plainest thing on the menu, a honey dip, a plain Timbit, nothing on it, nothing fancy in it, the safest possible choice. That's the idea, anyway. See, here's something most customers never learn. Nearly every yeast donut in that case, the rings, the filled ones, the Timbits, starts life as one master dough, one recipe wearing 40 costumes. So whatever's in that dough is in almost everything behind the glass. And what's in it? Yellow 5 and yellow 2 synthetic dyes, mixed straight into the base. Because that warm golden color you read as fresh baking is art directed. It's the same dye as a bag of cheese puffs. Think about how many Timbits this country eats in a day. Now remember, they all start from that same poisoned dough. And here's where Europe comes in. Over there, those 2 dyes trigger mandatory words printed right on the package. May have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children. That's been the law since 2010 after researchers at the University of Southampton gave dye blends to ordinary kids and watched their attention scores move. Canada read the same study. You know what they required? Nothing. Not a label, not a line on the menu board, not a whisper. The identical Timbit that carries a behavioral warning in Paris carries a smile in Moose Jaw. And don't take my word for any of this. Open the Tim's app, pull up any donut, and read the list yourself. It's all sitting there in public. Which brings us to the chocolate, because surely the chocolate is at least chocolate. Well, not entirely. The fondant on a chocolate dip does list real cocoa. Then it lists caramel color, then red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 1. 4 synthetic dyes stacked under the cocoa. The deep brown you recognize is partly a paint job built to look more like chocolate than the cocoa manages on its own. 3 of those 4 dyes sit on Europe's warning list, the same activity and attention language that follows the dough. And here's the part that should genuinely bother you. Europe never even banned these dyes from candy. They just forced that warning onto the box and let embarrassment do the enforcement. So the big candy companies switched their European recipes to colors made from plants and kept the synthetics for us. Same companies, same products, 2 recipes. They know how to do better. They just don't have to here. Add it up and 1 chocolate dip can leave the store carrying 5 coloring agents between the dough and the coat. In Brussels, that ingredient list is a legal event. In Barrie, it's a Tuesday. And if they're willing to fake the chocolate, Ask yourself one question. What do you think they did to the strawberry? They skipped it entirely. The strawberry filling in those donuts builds the whole fruit out of water, sugar, and cornstarch. The taste and flavorings and the color, red dye 40. Painted on the part, your eyes taste first. Caramel color shades it toward ripeness, and sodium benzoate keeps the illusion shelf stable. Nowhere in that story is a berry. Even the word flavorings is doing quiet work. Natural and artificial flavor is a legal curtain, and behind it can stand dozens of lab-built compounds no Canadian label ever has to name. Now, Europe doesn't ban fake strawberries. What Europe bans is doing it quietly, because Red 40 drags that child warning onto any package it touches. So the jam that never met a strawberry gets flagged over there and waved through over here, wearing a fruit's face the entire way. Sell the picture. Skip the plant. Tim's is far from the only brand running that trick. They're just the ones selling it to a whole country at breakfast. 4 items in, and the pattern is already ugly. The color is the product, and the color is the problem. If your usual order just flashed in front of your eyes, do yourself a favor. Hit like and subscribe right now, because everything you've seen so far was aimed at your eyes. The next item was aimed at your kids. Birthday cake Timbits. Think about what this item is. Tim Hortons built a product specifically for celebrating children. They rolled it in festive sprinkles and named it after the one day every kid cares about most. Sounds sweet. A birthday in a box. If you've ever bought one of these for a class party, this next minute is for you. Read the sprinkles. Red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 1. The full dye package on the one item engineered for children from the One Dye Family Europe flag specifically because of children. The Southampton researchers weren't testing factory workers, they were testing preschoolers with juice. That's who the warning was written for. And here's what makes it sting. Timbits isn't just a snack name in this country. It's the word stitched across the jerseys of 4-year-olds in hockey rinks from coast to coast. Timbits hockey, Timbits soccer. Hundreds of thousands of Canadian kids wear that logo every year in a genuinely great program. And the brand running it sells them a birthday treat Europe would slap a behavioral warning on. Over there, a birthday sprinkle gets its red from beets and its yellow from turmeric. No European bakery will print that warning next to a cake. I'm not saying anyone at Tim Hortons planned that sentence in a boardroom. I'm saying the recipe passed every desk it needed to pass, and nobody stopped it. So that's the youngest customers taken care of. Now let's talk about the oldest, because it's time for the item from the very top of this video, the one their most loyal customers order every single day. 1 in the afternoon, any Tim's in the country, the table by the window, the regulars, someone's got the crossword, someone's on a second refill, and the senior's discount is doing quiet work on the bill, soup and coffee. Some of them will tell you it's been the same order for 15 years. So what could possibly be wrong with a bowl of cream of broccoli? Read the list. Titanium dioxide, a whitening pigment, the same compound that makes paint white and sunscreen opaque. Outside of food, it brightens toothpaste and coats pills. Inside that bowl, its entire job is cosmetic. It makes the cream look creamier and the white look whiter. It feeds nobody. And you might be asking the obvious question, why does soup need paint chemistry at all? Because under fluorescent light, whiter reads as fresher. And fresh sells. In 2022, the European Union banned titanium dioxide from every food on the continent. Not labeled. Banned. France had thrown it out 2 years earlier, and the reason sits in one cold phrase from Europe's Food Safety Authority. Genotoxicity could not be ruled out. In plain words, they could not prove the particles don't damage DNA. Some are small enough to slip through the gut wall and build up in the body instead of passing through. Accumulation, remember that word, it's the process of gathering things over time, and it's going to matter twice tonight. A daily ritual is exactly how accumulation works. 15 years of the same lunch isn't a treat anymore. It's a dosing schedule. Canada looked at the same evidence, disagreed, and kept the pigment on the menu. So the customers with the deepest loyalty, the most years, the most orders behind them, are holding the one item Europe pulled first. That's the senior warning in this video's title. Delivered. This is the part of the video to send to your parents and keep that chemical's name in your pocket. Titanium dioxide is not done with this list, not even close. Now here's where it stops being a Tim Hortons story. Because maybe you're thinking, fine, I'll just get my lunch somewhere else. Somewhere like Harvey's. Flame-grilled burgers since 1959. Think about that year for a second. This chain was flipping burgers before Canada had its own flag. It's a place built on plain view. You watch a stranger garnish your burger one pickle at a time, nothing hidden, nothing rushed. So what could they possibly be hiding? The bun. The one part of the meal you never see made. Harvey's published ingredient list for its buns includes potassium iodate and calcium peroxide, flour treatment agents, fast chemistry that bleaches, strengthens, and conditions industrial dough so every bun rises the same way on the same clock. The trade is time. Those two compounds buy the bakery hours of proofing on every batch. And Europe authorizes neither one in bread. Not with a warning, not under a limit, not at all. Remember, this is bread we're talking about, the most basic food humans make. Europe's entire approved toolkit for treating flour is basically vitamin C and patience. Peroxide, in the EU's reading, belongs in a first aid kit and a hair salon, and that's where it stays. So the proudly Canadian chain that made a hamburger a beautiful thing serves it on compounds Europe kept out of the entire bread aisle. Different chain, different chemicals, the exact same gap in the rulebook. And it's starting to look less like an accident and more like the system working as designed. Still, at least Harvey's never claimed to be clean. The next chain built its whole brand on it. A&W. 10 years of ads full of pastures and sincerity, beef raised without added hormones or steroids, eggs from hens on a vegetarian diet. And to be fair, the beef claim is real, which is exactly what makes the rest of the menu such a strange read, because then you get to the onion rings. The batter starts with bleached wheat flour, whitened using chemical agents the EU does not authorize. Europe expects flour to be flour-colored, and they're prepared to wait for it. Deeper in this list sits something you would not expect in food at all. Sodium aluminum phosphate, an aluminum-based raising agent. Yes, that aluminum. In 2014, the EU tore through its additive laws and stripped aluminum compounds out of nearly everything people eat. Their safety authority had set a tolerable weekly intake for the metal, then discovered how many Europeans were already blowing past it through food alone. The worry was what a lifetime of exposure does to the nervous system. Canada's answer? Leave it in the onion rings. And before you ask, no, Europe is not anti-onion ring. Europe just makes them with flour and waits. Sit with that pairing for a second. A burger with no added hormones sold beside a side of added aluminum. That's the clean brand, audited. So let's count. 3 chains, 5 chemical families, dyes, pigments, bleaches, conditioners, and a metal. One country cheerfully eating all of it, which leaves the only question in this video that actually matters. Do these companies know what Europe thinks of their recipes? Oh, they know. They've always known, and the proof is printed on their own menus an ocean away. Tim Hortons operates in Europe. Real stores in the United Kingdom since 2017. Same cup, same font, same name over the door, but not the same food. Because every item sold in those stores has to comply with every rule this video has been describing. No red 3 on a sprinkle. No unlabeled warning dyes in the dough. No banned whitening pigment in anything that crosses the counter. Whatever they sell over there has been reformulated, relabeled, or it simply doesn't get sold. Now sit with what that actually means. The company already owns cleaner recipes. It already works with suppliers who can color a sprinkle with plants. European customers get that version automatically, by force of law, without asking a single question. And Canadian customers? We get the original chemistry, not because it's better, because no Canadian law says otherwise. A recipe change across thousands of restaurants means new suppliers, new testing, new costs, on every single item. No law here demands it, so no budget line pays for it. Tim's isn't even unusual in this. Nearly every multinational food company runs 2 recipe books, one for markets that demand better, one for markets that don't. Which book you're served from depends entirely on where you're standing. The safer version of your usual order exists tonight in a store wearing the same logo, an 8-hour flight away. And that's the quiet part of everything on this list. Not one of these chains has broken a single Canadian rule, not one fine, not one violation. That's the real issue. The rules here ask so little that everything you've seen today is completely, officially fine. Which brings us home to the donut this entire video has been circling. The Boston Cream. Ask anyone in this country to name a Tim Hortons donut, and this is the answer. The icon behind the glass. Chocolate on top, custard in the middle. The default order of an entire nation at a chain that's been pouring this country's coffee since 1964. Surely the icon is safe. After everything you've just seen, you already know the answer. You just don't know how bad it is. Read the filling, slowly, in order. Titanium dioxide, the soup chemical, the pigment Europe banned outright in 2022, sitting inside the custard to make it look whiter. Right beside it, yellow 5 and yellow 6. The warning label dyes from the dough, tinting that same custard back toward gold. Think about that pairing. They whiten it and they yellow it in the same recipe. That's how much of this filling is performance and how little of it is custard. Then comes carrageenan, a seaweed extract faking the thickness of a cream that was never really there. The EU banned it from infant food over concerns it inflames the gut. And there are sulfites riding along in the flavorings just for good measure. One donut, the banned pigment, the flag dyes, the restricted thickener. Every single mechanism in this video folded into the most Canadian donut ever made. And now remember, which of those chemicals accumulates? If you've ordered a Boston Cream with your double-double every week since your first paycheck, that pigment didn't just visit. Some of it may have moved in. That's why the title told seniors to beware. The longer you've loved this menu, the more of it you may be carrying. Europe didn't ban any of this out of spite for a donut chain. Europe bans on doubt. Canada demands proof of harm first. And while everyone waits politely for that proof, you're the test group, holding a rewards card instead of a consent form. So the next time you're at that counter, look at the display case one more time and ask yourself what European regulators already asked. If it's not safe enough for them, why is it fine for you? But here's the question even this video can't answer. How does a company that built its entire identity on this country decide Canadians should get the version Europe refused? Because this is not the first time Tim Hortons made that exact choice. We made a whole video on how Tim Hortons betrayed the country that built it, who actually owns the chain today, what got traded away when they sold, and why your coffee hasn't tasted the same since. If tonight stung, that video is where the sting started. It's on your screen right now. Go watch it.